like thinking of the listeners now, would you have any like lessons from that experience that like you would learn from and maybe do differently in the future? I
In
mean,
terms of learning languages?
yeah, like if you were to do a similar project again, how would you approach it differently in the future?
Yeah, I think if I were to do it again, I think this would be the ideal situation. Really getting a job in the country, not as an English teacher, because that is, for me, my native tongue. So, not in your native tongue, getting a job in the country where you're going to be surrounded by the language 24/7 is key. One thing that I saw in Moscow that I tried to prepare differently in France was I was spending 2/3 of my day, teaching in English. And then I would come back home exhausted and then trying to cram in as much Russian as I could. And it just was not, it just wasn't working. So in France, I really tried to make sure that as a teacher, I would have just the basic minimum so I could eat and live, and yet spend like 2/3 of my day really speaking, practicing reading and writing in French. And that really helped. So my French writing skills exploded. Like they really they improved very fast. But at the same time, because I wasn't in school and I wasn't being trained by native French speakers, my accent is terrible. So if you were to ask me to just start speaking in French, I am 100% certain not a single French soul will understand what I'm saying. But if you were to ask me to write something in French, then we have a different story. So I would really suggest to the person, if you were to try to do something like, okay, I want to learn a language, we've seen, or I've seen so many times online where someone says, I learned a language in 3 months, or it only took me a month. Okay, maybe that's true, fine, that's great for them. I would say, block out a chunk of time in your day, if you're doing it from home or if you're doing it outside of a country that speaks your target language, and really just kind of absorb everything about that culture or about that language as much as possible. But you have to be aware of the ratio between you thinking in your native tongue and you practicing a language in the target language that you want to acquire. That
Mm.
ratio is important. That would be my number one advice first, and then everything else, go for it.
Yeah, I love that. That's really good. I love the distinction between like maybe getting a job or something, because I feel like a lot of people have this maybe misconception that if you just go to another country, that's immersion, you'll improve. But I've done that before and I haven't really spoken to anyone apart from like please and thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, getting a job, you're kind of forcing yourself to use it. Otherwise, you can't perform your job in most cases. So I think something like that is always a good way to go, like some kind of activity or club or anything like that where you have to use the language to get by, right? I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, that was definitely the target for moving abroad and not trying to do it from the United States, because I knew that if I was in a comfortable space, the times when I was feeling maybe insecure or worried or really apprehensive about how I appeared to others would dominate my desire to learn the language as well
Mhm.
as I needed to.